Worm castings can cost as much as $3 a pound on Amazon. And when you have a garden, you're going to go through a pound pretty quickly, which can really rack up the price for you over a gardening season. This video is going to show you not only how to build a cheaper worm bin yourself, but how to make sure that you keep the costs down while doing it. If you like learning about vermiculture and other urban gardening tips and tricks, please subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any videos. This is part 2 of our 3-part series addressing vermicompost, vermiculite, worm castings, which is basically all worm poop. If you missed part 1, please check it out here and then also watch this one. But why are people going gaga over worm poop? You can create organic compost faster using a worm bin than conventional methods. It has lower levels of salinity in the compost, which is really important because if you have more alkaline soil like we do, you can actually end up with a salinity problem in your soil. In testing by Jeff Lowenfels and Wayne Lewis, worm castings have 5 times the nitrogen, 10 times the potash, and 7 times the phosphates than conventional compost. And that's before you start talking about the beneficial microbes that you will actually get from your worm casting. Now you're sitting there thinking, well, if it's so good...
I'll take 2. Hey, put me down 2, man. I get 1.
I'm game. How's it done?
First off, you should know that there are 2 main types of bins. Flow-through bin, and the second is a stacked bin. There are pros and cons to each kind of bin, and we're going to address them in 2 videos. This video is going to address the pros and cons of stacked bins. Pros of stacked bins are that they don't take up a lot of space, which is great when you're an urban gardener, and 2, they're very easy for you to get worm tea from. The cons of the stacked bin is maintaining your temperature and water, and they can get really heavy as you move through your season if you don't harvest from them very often. Additionally, it's hard to harvest from a stacked bin because the worms basically migrate up to eat and then they're hanging out there, so you have to starve them for a little while to make them stay down so you can get the worm castings out. If you were to just go online and shop for a stacked bin worm composter, you're going to be looking to spend about $80 to $100, and that's before your maintenance costs. Every couple of years or so, you're going to need to replace trays. Each one of those trays costs you about $25. That's a lot of money, especially when you're thinking that to keep up with the average size garden, you're going to need multiple bins. So, everyone has seen and heard of the Rubbermaid bin trick, and if you haven't, I'll quickly recap. The Rubbermaid bin trick is that you take a 15 to 18 gallon Rubbermaid bin and you drill holes in one and you place it into a second one. This allows basically water to drift down and worms to drift up. But the problem with that is that if you overwater your bin, then your worms drown. They can't swim. They need oxygen. So in the 2-bin option, the worms live in the bottom bin and they migrate up to the top bin to eat. Then on top of the bin, you have a top. So that way everything is sealed inside and you're pretty much a closed system. But like I said, there's a problem if you overwater or if you overfeed. So a lot of people solve this with the 3-bin option, where basically the bottom bin is where you harvest your worm tea from. All of the excess water goes straight down to there with smaller holes that the worms can't access. It keeps the worms in the middle bin dry, and then they still migrate up to the top bin for food and more water. So the Rubbermaid trick can actually make, even with 3 bins, can make the cost of your worm bin system $15 to $20 rather than $80 to $100, which definitely makes it a little easier for you to have multiple bins around your farm, around your property. But what they don't tell you is that, one, you don't have to buy that expensive coconut block. You can actually get away with just 2 or 3 cups of native dirt that your worms would be able to use for grit and shredded newspaper. Now you want to avoid the glossy magazine section of the newspaper because that can have some questionable ink types that could be bad. But the standard newsprint newspaper, I used to use the sports section, sue me, but that works just fine. Okay. The second thing they don't tell you about these bins is that you need to schedule worm time. Worms aren't like normal pets that you have around your house. You don't have to feed and water them or take them for walks every day, so it's very easy to forget about them and then find that you've got a lot of worms suddenly escaping your bin. But if you set an alarm or make a date on your weekly schedule that you know that this is when you're going to go and check your bin, then that's the best way to do it, because they do need some maintenance. They just don't need a lot of maintenance. So freeze your bedding. Inside your bedding, if you're using leaves that have fallen off of your trees or straw, could be little mites and things that will take over your bin and give you the worst case of lice, mites, all kinds of things that are almost impossible to get rid of in your bin. Especially if you're starting out and you've got a starter pound of worms or you've hunted for your own, this could kill you and you'll be dead in the water if you can't get rid of them, and it takes weeks. So save yourself the heartache and freeze your bedding.